All right. So let me paint the picture for you. It was 2022 and I was an internal coach for a biotech. This is before I put my foot into entrepreneurship. And as an internal coach, I was frequently called into working with many different teams, many different people that wanted to work with me and lead their teams on solving huge business problems, doing lots of transformation work, sometimes doing a little bit of like personality testing, and definitely a lot of strategic and complex kind of uh, uh, conflict kind of work, right? And I remember back in 2022, there was a new team that was formed, and there were two other coaches that was working with this team. But because this team was primarily consist of people of color, they thought that it would be helpful for me to actually step into this team and support and to help just for psychological safety, being more connected to the subject matter, and just knowing and having a lot of awareness about it. And so this was a brand new team. And this team, because they were brand new, one of the things that they really wanted to work on was strategy. Just like any other team that you know, you're going to hear a team say, we need a strategy. We need to choose our strategy. We need to have a strategic direction. And I think people say that because it sounds good sometimes, but oftentimes they have no idea what they're talking about and they have no idea how to proceed. It's just the nature of the game when I'm working with teams. And I remember working on this strategy for months, something that typically takes a few weeks or maybe 3 or 4 sessions turned into like a 6 month, 9 month, 12-month process of just trying to figure out this strategy. And I think the reason why it was so difficult was because this team had to work cross functionally. It was a matrix environment. You know, there was one leader, but that leader had people that may have did the work for them, but didn't necessarily report to them in the system. And there was just a lot of complexity that came with this team. And I remember finally we got to a place where the strategy was good enough. And we were like, okay, we got what we need. I think we've had enough sessions. We've brought in different stakeholders. We've put this before the senior leadership team. We think it's okay to move forward. And what I realized later on is that this wasn't necessarily a strategy issue because there were a lot of things that were happening systemically that was slowing us down, that was creating the bottlenecks, and that was just making it difficult to really implement the strategy that they did have. I realized that we have to be mindful as leaders that we know the difference between when a team needs a strategy and when a team needs to focus on a system. So in today's podcast episode, I really want to talk about the difference between a strategy and a system and break down what these two things mean so that you have awareness so that you're able to notice these things at any given time and you know what you need for your team because this is very important. Sometimes we go after the wrong issues, we are focused on the wrong problems, and we spend months, sometimes years, on something that we're like, this is just a band-aid solution. It actually isn't what we really need to be focused on. So I want to break that down to you today. Okay. Just so you know, I right now am doing a 30-day systems, focusing on systems series. I'm going live pretty much every day on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And so make sure you come and follow me. Make sure you come and join. I typically post, on LinkedIn, you have to be more structured and you have to actually schedule it out. So the schedule is on there. So make sure you come because I'm talking all about systems and all about how to look at different elements of the system so that you can be a leader that is firm, that is really knowledgeable about how to transform your system and how to work with what's happening in your system. Okay. So make sure you go and check that out. So let's go ahead and jump into what is a system and what is strategy. So I follow Roger Martin. He is a coach, he is a consultant, and he does a lot of work with the company called IDEO. And I remember a couple of years ago, I took one of his courses or one of the IDEO's courses that talked a lot about strategy. And this was something that it really hit home for me, and it actually equipped me for this team that I was working with. So I didn't know that I was going to be working with this team, but once they talked about needing strategy, I was ready. I was fired up. I was good to go. Roger Martin, he talks about strategy to be a set of choices that you make that put you in a position to win. It puts you in a position to succeed. It puts you in a position to make forward progress. So it's not something that's going to keep you stuck. It's really going to move you forward. It's really going to make you better because it's going to put you in the direction that you need to go. Now, with a strategy, it requires you to explore what's the problem that you see and what's the pattern that you see. So you're looking for problems and you're looking for patterns. This is important with strategy, and sometimes you'll see this as like market research. You'll see this as surveys. You'll see this as interviews, but you really need to know what's the gap. The book Blue Ocean Strategy is a really good book because it talks about how do you figure out what the gap is in the market, what's the unmet need in the market, what's the thing that nobody is solving for. And that's a really good strategic type of like noticing and becoming aware. But this is what strategy is. It is finding what are the gaps in the market, what are the gaps in your organization that we need to solve for that is going to be a ripple effect to everything else that we do. And so when you're thinking about strategy, I want you to ask yourself, what is the direction that I'm going? And what is the thing that is missing? What is the gap that we see? What is not being solved right now? So that's strategy. Now, the second thing is system. A system is the process that you implement to fulfill or to meet a strategy. This is the plan. These are the step-by-step things that you do. It's like, okay, so we have this strategy. We're going to do this thing. These are the steps. These are the tactics. This is the outcome we want. This is the goal that we want. And so we follow this process to help us understand. So how do you know if you are in your organization, you're in your team, and you're trying to figure out, is this a strategy problem or is this a system problem? And you're asking this because you don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste time, energy, money, resources. You don't want to waste time. We have too many things to do. And so we need to get up on it. We need to move forward. And so, how do you know? Well, I'm glad you're listening because I'm about to share with you how do you figure this out. So, strategy, the key question is, why are we doing this? So, again, I talked about looking at the market, doing some research, surveys, interviews, looking at data, looking at trends, looking at patterns, looking at the problems, things that aren't being solved. Why are we doing this? A strategy has to be able to answer that question. You are looking to solve for a strategy problem when you are not sure on what the direction is yet. You know how to do your work. You know how to log on to a system. You know how to calculate some numbers. You know how to present some information, but you don't have a direction. You don't know what all of this is in service for. A strategy also is you are making choices based on data. So there's something that's telling you whether or not you should do it or not. So I know in a lot of like decision making when I'm doing decision making with teams, there's a process that I call a consent process. And a consent process is like, we consent for this to move forward. We say that this can move forward because there isn't any data to disprove the direction that we're going. And so with a strategy, you want to make sure that you have data that says this is the direction that we should be going. Don't just throw something out there and be like, okay, I'm going to do it, because that's not helpful to anybody. That is the easiest way to get into this pattern of just doing to do. So you want to make sure that your choices are based on data. It's based on something tangible that you can point back to and say, this is why we're doing that. So I can hear you in your mind saying, okay, so this is the direction we're going. This is what we're doing. But what's the difference between a strategy and an outcome, a goal, or tactics? So I wanted to describe that to you because it is something that's like, it really sounds really close. And there are some nuances in it and some differences that happen. And again, this is important because if you don't know the difference, you'll be solving for a problem that isn't really the root problem. And you're going to waste a lot of time, energy, money, resources, and you're going to be stressed and burned out because you didn't solve for the right thing. So, what is the difference? So, an outcome is what you want. This is the end result you're aiming for. This is the destination you're aiming for. So, if my destination is Hawaii, that is my outcome. I am going to make it to Hawaii. Okay. So, that is an outcome. The strategy, as we talked about, this is all about like how you're going to approach it. It's the overarching method or the guiding plan that connects today to your goal. So it's the set of choices or the route. The route, our strategy to get to Hawaii, is it going to be by airplane, train, boat? How we getting there? That is our strategy. And the tactics are what you're going to do day to day. So these are the specific actions, the tools, or the steps that you're going to take to execute on the strategy. This is the moves you're going to make around the route, along the route. So we're going to Hawaii. That's our outcome. Our strategy is we're going to fly. And our tactic is that we're going to buy an airplane ticket. We're going to pack for the amount of time. We're going to choose the amount of days. We're going to go with these certain people. We are going to plan, all those tactics to get to Hawaii by plane. That is what it looks like. Those are the difference. Another example is, say your goal is to run a marathon. Y'all, I wish I could run a marathon, but my body don't tell me that I can run a marathon. I'm too old for that now. So I tell myself, I'm sure if I put some tactics in place and I had a strategy, I probably could do it. But just stay with me right here. Your goal is to run a marathon. Your strategy that you're going to do is you're going to train consistently. You're going to focus on endurance. You're going to focus on injury prevention. This is your strategy. Like, how can the direction that I'm going, the place that I'm going is to train consistently and to have a focus on endurance and injury prevention. That is the strategy. That is how I am going to be able to run this marathon. And then the tactics are, I am going to follow a 16-week training plan and I'm going to run 4 times a week. I'm going to do yoga on off days and I am going to hire a coach. To sum that up, a goal is what success looks like. A strategy is your game plan and the tactics are the plays that you're going to run. It's the things that you're going to do in order to get to where you need to go. So, what is a system? Okay. Now, your system, this is how you see whether or not it's a system problem. If you're noticing that things seem just hard, it's more difficult than it needs to be. There are things breaking down. If people are asking, like, why is it so hard? You have a system problem. Because again, you can have a direction and you know where you're going, but the system isn't set up for you to succeed. And that's a lot of the conversation that I'm having with these lives on LinkedIn lately, is that I'm saying, like, are we evaluating our system a little bit more than just blaming the people, blaming the process? Like, what are we doing to really take a real look at, like, what is the actual problem? What is really going on, right? So with the system, you may know where you're going, but something in the system keeps breaking down. This happens a lot with technology. With technology, you're like, I know that I can use this piece of thing, but it keeps breaking down. Y'all, no lie. I'm recording this podcast without a microphone today because my mic is broken. And it's another reason why my podcast is late this week, because my mic is broken. And the thing is, I know the direction that I was going. It was ensuring that I put out a podcast, but the system, the cord is broke, the mic isn't working. I'm like finagling the cord to try to keep it alive. My system is broken. There's something in the system, the process, that doesn't allow me to publish the podcast when I should do it. So I had to change the system. I said, you know what? I'm just going to get on here and I'm going to talk and I'm going to make it work. We going to make it work. My daughter, she's in college. She goes to Clark Atlanta, and their motto is find a way or make one. So that's what I had to do, right? My strategy was find a way or make one. So that's what I'm doing. This is what this looks like. Because the reality is, again, many of our systems are not set up for our changing market, for our culture dynamics, for things that are happening around us. And so we think, oh, we got to put another strategy in place, or do we have to put another system in place? Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's both. I just want to be honest about that. Sometimes it's both. We need both the strategy and the system to be optimal so that it works well. Sometimes we need one or the other. Like, I don't want you to be working on a strategy forever. Because if you're working on a strategy forever, you're just talking about the thing and you're not taking action. And we on teams, me as a coach, I love when we are taking action. So we're going to take action. We're going to get to the place that we need to go. So let's break this down a little bit more. I want to give you some questions that you can ask yourself, your team, so you actually really know when you're going to ask these different questions. What are the things that you need to say? What are the things that you need to do in order to get you just really focused on the right thing? I don't want you to be confused. I want you to really be equipped with the right knowledge that's going to get you to the place that you need to go. Okay. So let me share with you some questions that you can definitely ask yourself or your team to figure out whether you need the strategy or you need the system. All right. So again, the strategy is a direction issue. There's something going on, can't be put into place because we don't even know the direction that we're going. So if you hear your team says, why are we doing this? That's a strategy problem. That means that there's no clear North Star. There isn't a shared goal. There isn't things that's put in place. Your priorities might feel a little scattered, or they might feel conflicting. Like, wait a minute, we're doing this, but then we're also doing this, and that doesn't make sense, right? Maybe you're overly busy. If you see that your people are busy, but it doesn't feel like we're moving or making progress or moving things forward, you have a strategy problem. And then if people are not clear, if there's not alignment, if there's maybe some infighting, and this works for the system side too. But if there's some infighting, perhaps, my friend, you have a strategy problem. And a system problem, it's an execution issue. There's something wrong with the execution. If your team is asking, why is this so hard? This is so difficult. I can't believe this feels like I'm pulling teeth. Like, this is draining me. Like, I just have to go through so many different layers to get this done. There might be an issue with your system. So you might have a clear goal, but it's messy. The execution is messy. There's information everywhere. It's in Google Docs and Slacks, Trello, in Asana, in Airtable, on the chat channel teams. It's everywhere. It's in text message to your boss. It is messy. Or if there's miscommunication, if there's duplication of work, or somebody dropped the ball, that might be a system issue. Can you imagine a track meet where the baton race and somebody drops the baton? That is a clear example of something wrong with the system. They didn't put their hand back at the right time. They didn't pass it at the right time. They didn't time it to keep running. They didn't start running like they should, and the person ran past them and they should be behind them. There's a system problem. And so things break down. Or maybe there's meetings. We're in a lot of meetings all the time, but nothing is happening. That also could be a system problem. Or people feel exhausted by how work gets done. No one is clear. People are like, we're doing a lot of work, but nothing is happening. Nothing is moving forward. I feel depleted. That could be a systems problem. So if the problem is direction, that's a strategy problem. And if the problem is execution, that is a systems problem. And sometimes it's both. Sometimes both you need, sometimes both you have to have. But the goal here is that you don't want to waste a lot of time on something that doesn't need to be wasted. Like, you don't need to waste a lot of time on. And we just need to be clear because a lot of our teams are spending a lot of time on things that just feel so hard. And strategy could feel hard too. Like I said, this team that I work with, we work for months, almost a year, over a year on a strategy. And as I think about this team, because I'm no longer with the organization, when I think about this team, I say to myself, you know what? The system isn't set up for them to succeed. So no matter what strategy they put in place, whatever direction they decide, the system isn't in agreement. And that's a whole other problem. But it's a problem where you say, okay, my strategy is likely to have to be centered on the system. What needs to change in the system? And that becomes your strategic direction versus maybe your strategy was to benefit customers, but we need to clean the inside of our house first before we take it outside. Sometimes that's the issue. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you understand the difference between a system and a strategy. I hope that you start to ask yourselves these questions because there's nothing worse that I want you to do than to waste your time, focus on the wrong thing, okay? Because we don't have time. We have lives to live. We have families to, be with. We just have things that we have to do. And if we're wasting our time night and day and night thinking, what's the strategy? Which way we should go, or why are we doing this? Like, I don't understand. It gets so complex, it gets messy, and it gets more messy than it needs to be. So if this was helpful for you, please share with someone, download it. I want to get my downloads up. Share it with somebody who may need this, this may be helpful for. Also, please check me out on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. I am streaming from LinkedIn, my LinkedIn series about systems that help teams work. And I just finished off 6 days of really looking at seeing the system. How do we see the system? And tomorrow I'm jumping into how do we center the voices in the system? And our first topic is all about power. So I hope to see you. I hope you join. I hope you connect with me. Again, this has been wonderful to really just talk to you and break this down. And good luck on your team. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. If today's episode moved you, sparked a new idea, or challenged your perspective, share with a friend and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. But before you go, take a moment to reflect. What does leadership beyond the title mean to you? How are you already living it? And where might you lean in just a little bit more? And if you're ready to step into leadership that's rooted in your values, amplifies your voice, and positions you as the go-to leader in your field, check the show notes to learn how we can work together. Keep showing up, keep leading, just as you are, with leadership beyond the title.